Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Riggs Library as we gather today to renew our commitment to working towards gender equality locally and globally. Our conversation today is part of a series of events focused on global gender justice that we've hosted on campus over the course of this week with leaders who are committed to building a world of political, social, and economic equality. Your presence and participation is a testament to the strength of our community's dedication to this important and unfinished work. And I wish to extend our gratitude to our special guest, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, the United Nations Undersecretary and Executive Director of UN Women. Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka, among many other achievements, is the leader behind He for She, an initiative launched by UN Women in 2014. And I'm honored to welcome her to Georgetown today, and I look forward to sharing a few more words about her in just a moment. I'd also like to welcome our Executive Director of the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, and a distinguished global leader, Ambassador Melanne Verveer. Melanne, we want to thank you for your efforts to help us realize this partnership with He for She. And it's wonderful to have you here for this important event in the life of our community. And I also wish to extend our appreciation to Rosemary Kilkenny, our Vice President for Institutional Diversity and Equity, who will moderate our conversation later on in our program. I'd like to recognize three members of our community who will share their own reflections with us today. Georgetown University Student Association President, Joe Luther, the founder and former Secretary General of Georgetown's chapter of the United Nations Association, Jonathan Dromgoole, and Haley Manus, who serves as part of our sexual assault working group. In the spirit of the He for She movement, these students have been deeply engaged in collaboratively working towards gender equality in our university community. I want to thank you again for your efforts and for your willingness to share your experiences with us today. Nearly a year and a half ago, the He for She initiative was launched at the United Nations by UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and UN Women Global Goodwill Ambassador Emma Watson, animated by the idea that gender equality is, quote, not only a women's issue, but a human rights issue that requires the participation and commitment of men, close quote. In these words, we recognize the influence of Secretary Clinton's historic speech in Beijing in 1995 and her affirmation that, quote, human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights, end quote. As we gather together this morning, more than 2 decades later, we have much progress to celebrate and much further to go. For those reasons, our university is proud to take part in the He for She initiative as an impact champion and to continue our work to support gender equality in our own community in concrete and measurable ways. We're joined in this commitment by 9 other university presidents around the world, including Marco Zago, the president of the University of Sao Paulo, and I'm pleased to welcome the ambassador of Brazil, Ambassador Machado, who joins us this morning on his behalf. Mr. Ambassador, welcome. In our role as a He for She impact champion, we've focused on deepening 3 aspects of our ongoing commitment to gender equality here on campus. First, we're committed to promoting scholarship and dialogue on critical issues impacting women, peace, diplomacy, and development through the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, led by Ambassador Melanne Verveer, and have advanced this work through our He for She commitment. We believe this work of scholarship, research, and teaching can have a deep impact in furthering the role of women in peace building in areas of conflict around the world. Second, we're deeply engaged with the urgent issue of sexual assault on college and university campuses. In 1997, we were one of the first institutions to hire a full-time sexual assault coordinator. More than a decade ago, we established Georgetown's Sexual Assault Working Group. And now, building on this work, this last spring we launched a new online training program entitled Respect, preventing discrimination, harassment, and sexual misconduct. More than 97% of our current faculty and staff have completed this training, and we continue to work towards our goal of 100% completion. We also concluded our first sexual assault and misconduct climate survey earlier this month, led by our sexual assault working group. This survey garnered a response rate of 51% for all survey participants and 62% response rate for undergraduate students. Now, this is an extraordinary response. The average rate among the 27 colleges and universities who administered the same survey last year was 19%. Let me remind you, 51%, 62%. I'm bragging here. But we're very proud of our community and the seriousness of purpose in their response. And third, we're deepening and strengthening the work of our Georgetown Women's Alliance as they seek to foster a campus culture in which women are able to learn, grow, and thrive. Since its creation, the Alliance has brought together more than 1,200 students, faculty, staff, and alumni of our university in support of this mission. The GWA provides a network for the exciting, transformative, and important work that has been happening across our campus for many years, from research by our faculty on women in leadership to dynamic student groups such as Own It, who are engaging their generation to become the leaders of our future, to long-standing professional groups within our communities, such as Georgetown Women in Medicine. These projects are part of an enduring commitment enhanced through our connection with He for She towards achieving greater gender equality in our Georgetown community and around our world, a commitment that we honor and strengthen by welcoming the Executive Director of UN Women to Georgetown today. As United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, Dr. Lambo Nuka is the driving force behind the He for She initiative. She has dedicated her career to advocating on behalf of issues of human rights, equality, and social justice. She's held a variety of roles in the government of her home country of South Africa, including Deputy President, where she was involved in the struggle to end apartheid. She's taught young women through her role as a coordinator at the World YMCA in Geneva. She's also the founder of the Umhlanga Foundation, which works to improve the quality of education in South African public schools by developing the school leaders through coaching and mentoring. Dr. Lambo Nuka, it is an incredible privilege for us to be able to welcome you here to our community. We're grateful for your leadership at the United Nations and of the He for She initiative. We thank you for taking the time to share your reflections and engage with us in this conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our honored guest, Dr. Lambo Nuka.
Don't worry, I won't use all of this. Thank you so much for those kind words of introduction. Dr. John Giorgia, and President of Georgetown University. It's just as much a pleasure for me as it is for you that this day has come. I know we've tried once or twice when we had diary issues, but it happened now. And it's lovely to be in this wonderful venue. Ambassador Melanie Verveer, thank you so much for your perseverance and for your support for UN Women and the He for She campaign. To all the leaders of this great institution who are here, the student leaders, the faculty, my colleagues from UN Women who are here with me today, it really is a great pleasure that we're here today to recognize and to celebrate yet another stride that is being taken by this university. I also want to acknowledge the presence of the Ambassador of Brazil to the United States because Brazil is one of the countries with a university that is also a he for she university. We have 10 such universities, two in the US, one in Brazil, one in South Africa, one in Hong Kong, one in Japan, two in the UK, and growing. So thank you, Ambassador, for making the time to be here. The collaboration of Georgetown University with other impact champions, as we call these he for she champions, has included a plan to host Japan's Nagoya University for a women's leadership event this month, and working closely with South Africa's University of Witwatersrand on a gender equality survey clearly demonstrates your dedication to gender equality here in Georgetown and beyond. A special thanks also to you, Melanie, for bringing in the aspects of women, peace and security into this conversation, because you are one of the few universities in the world actually that has got this specialization. So we appreciate that we will benefit even more from the expertise that exists in this university. He for She is a campaign that recognizes that for the world to truly progress on gender equality, we need men and women to work together, and that the impact and benefit of an equal world accrues to both men and women and to future society. Women of my generation, we sort of didn't quite get it, because we're the kinds of feminists who didn't really work with men that much. And we've come a full circle to actually realize that this is just an issue and a responsibility for men as it is for women. And that in areas specifically of fighting to end gender-based violence, you need to have men to be in the forefront to denounce this violence and to take action to stop it. And that we need to start early so that as boys, men begin to embrace a culture of positive masculinity. But also that we need to invest in women so that women can understand that it is not okay to be abused, to be put down, and to be exploited. So that we do not have a situation where mother-in-laws or sister-in-laws or partners actually accept to be treated as if they were second-class citizens. So he for she is about investing in men's capacity to take on this fight, as well as investing in women's capacity to continue with the struggle and to make sure that the current and future generations understand that there should be zero tolerance to any form of abuse. As a university impact champion, Georgetown has committed to addressing women's role in all areas of peace building through its new Institution for Women, Peace and Security. Globally, we are facing some of the most complex challenges to peace and security since the founding of the UN. With continuing cycles of violence and conflicting in regions which tend to last much longer, with generations of countries at war where diplomacy fails us, the issue of women, peace and security has become a centerpiece, unfortunately, in the work of the United Nations. New forms of insecurity caused by climate shocks and violent extremism do not make the work easier, and the growing migrant and refugee crisis could not have happened at a worse time. And of course, in all of these issues, women and girls are at the bottom of the ladder. In the first place, they are worst affected, but when solutions are to be found, you cannot take it for granted that the issues of women will be brought to the fore and will be addressed in a specific way. Institutions like Georgetown are helping to build on the unquestionable link between women's meaningful participation in peace and security decision-making and the long-term sustainability of peace. Progress is slow and uneven as far as that is concerned. women continue to be excluded or marginalized in decision-making in peace processes. Even though we have seen an increase in the extent to which peace negotiators and negotiations consult with women and civil society, but the actual representation and involvement of women as decision makers has not increased significantly. This is despite evidence that the chances of a peace agreement lasting 15 years goes up by as much as 35% when women are involved in negotiations. I think sometimes we could forget that Southern Africa is a post-conflict region. We had Angola, we had Mozambique, we had South Africa, we had Zimbabwe. And in all of these countries, we had violent skirmishes between and amongst the peoples. In all of these countries, women played a very active role and made sure that the constitutions of those countries also took, or Namibia also. And while I think we still continue to have to protect and to nurture the peace in that part of the country because there's threats every now and again, it has been important that women, having learned from what happened in Algeria, stood up and said, we will want the peace in this country to take into account not just women, but to also address issues of sustainability. Another good example would be Liberia, where women played such a significant role, and they were lucky to even to get a woman president who is just about to bow down gracefully. She's not seeking a third term, and we have not seen war in that country since she ascended to that office. We've seen Sierra Leone also stabilizing. So we do have pockets of examples of what can happen when we also bring women to the fore. And I think here you honored one of the women from Sierra Leone yesterday who made that peace happen in that country the way it has happened. Women have also been working in countries such as Colombia in order to make sure that that peace process is engendered. And we are proud as UN Women that we have been associated with that process. In fact, the peace negotiators and the government and the rebels in Colombia called on UN Women to work with them to bring women from all sides to be part of the peace process. The UN as a whole was brought into the peace process at the back of the UN Women. And we were so proud to be in front of all the UN colleagues, and even prouder of the role that the women have played. The Colombian women have conducted themselves in the process. We have been working with women in Syria, because Marlene has been part of that, in order to make sure also that we position women better in that process. UN Women has supported the establishment of the Syrian Women's Initiative for Peace and Development, and now the official Women's Advisory Board for the UN Special Envoy for Syria. So now we have got 12 women who are advisors to the envoy and will stay with him throughout the peace process. Of course, that does not exclude the need to have women included in the negotiating parties on the side of the government and on the side of the opposition. Georgetown's Institute for Women in Peace and Security also focuses on preventing sexual violence in conflict and increasing assistance to refugees. So these are some of the fruits that we see coming out of this relationship, that we will be able to bring our concerns as well as our strengths together. We will build on the great pride and history of this university to take on the issues of women and, of course, of girls, because these days some get into university at a very young age. Such work will be key to the many women migrants also who are fleeing gender-based violence in their home countries only to encounter it at the hands of traffickers and smugglers. So the research that you generate helps us also to understand that field. The lack of locked doors, adequate lighting, and proper sanitation facilities in urban environments and refugee camps also increases the women refugees' risk of physical and sexual violence. And when you research and you write about these issues, you help us to highlight these issues and to get action on them. And too often, migrant women lack access to basic and essential services and the tools for political, economic, and social empowerment. These are issues for men to tackle To be a he for she means that we are saying to men and boys, these are just as much your issues as leaders and as ordinary men as it is for institutions, for women's movement and women leaders. I look forward to seeing the results of the Georgetown's continuing research and consortia to eliminate the best practice in this area. We also are glad that you have taken up on the issue of campus violence. We've seen that a new study from the US Department of Justice shows that as many as 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted in college. Unfortunately, this is a global challenge. In every country, we see this trend and we have this concern. I commend Georgetown on its new program, Respect, Preventing Discrimination, Harassment, and Sexual Misconduct. This provides the tool to recognize and report discrimination, harassment, and sexual misconduct on campus. More than 95% of current faculty and staff have already completed the training. That is a wow, I have to say, because I mean, I have been in the university environment. I know how frustrating it is when you do not get this kind of traction, so congratulations. And I know that you'll get 100%. That's not going to be a big deal. At UN Women, we emphasize the importance of prevention of violence against women and girls before it occurs by addressing its root and structural causes. These approaches include a strong human rights culture and zero tolerance for any form of gender discrimination and prejudice. And we also know that leadership is important. So we are glad that here the leaders are leading from the front on these issues, because you send a message to everybody in the community. Prevention interventions must be complemented by measures that ensure that recovery and safety of survivors and their protection from further stigmatization is also addressed. We know that the origins of violence lie deeply rooted in gender inequality and discrimination, and in cultural and social norms and practices, attitudes, and behaviors that tolerate or condone violence and gender inequality. I think what we're doing today is to say we do not accept that, and that both men and women will work together to address this. Last year, we adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and we embrace a much big agenda for the world called Agenda 2030, which focuses on not only addressing underdevelopment in developing countries, but a universal agenda to address shared prosperity in all countries, protection of the environment, ensuring that we leave no one behind, and ensuring that we entrench the culture of peace and we bring about peace in the world. The 17 goals, daunting as they may be, are very interconnected. The agenda is universal because change is needed both in the rich as well as in the poor countries. If I just take women and girls, for instance, violence against women is a universal problem in the rich and the poor country. The fact that there is no country in the world that has achieved gender equality means that every country has homework. The fact that there is no country that has achieved gender parity in critical institutions means that all countries have got homework. The fact that unpaid care is a burden of women in all countries means that all countries have work to do. And of course, the fact that cultural practices that are harmful to people tend to impact on women and girls more than they would impact men is also something that affects many countries. In particular here, we're talking about child marriages, the trafficking of women. All of these are universal issues. So we see a unique opportunity through the Sustainable Development Goals to revitalize a global movement for good that will make sure that our projections to 2030 are for a world in which we truly are doing our best to leave no one behind. In universities, that's where sits the intellectual power, strength, vision to actually make sure that we can achieve that. And of course, also the optimism. If we lose optimism amongst young people, we've lost the game. And the 10 universities that are part of He for She capture that optimism that we see in young people. I have heard that here in Georgetown, you also have the Georgetown Women's Alliance to help advance gender equality and women's empowerment across all levels of subject. on the campus and beyond. I've also heard that some 120,000 women and men have already signed up for the Alliance, and I hope that you can continue to expand these numbers across campus and to new constituencies. These are the initiatives that we expect for you to exchange with these other universities that are part of HeForShe, and of course your other alliances that you have. Just to give you a sense of what the other universities that are part of HeForShe are doing that you could look forward to collaborate on. Stony Brook has taken great leadership stride in introducing mandatory gender sensitization courses for all new students 2015-2016. This will reach the campus community of over 3,000 students and ignite ongoing conversation on masculinity and gender norms on campus with an intention to entrench positive masculinity. Nagoya University has its groundbreaking commitment to build the Center for Gender Equality, which is scheduled to open in 2018. The center will serve as a home for the gender equality movement of Japan as a whole and play a host to the gender library that is expected to host about 10,000 books when it opens. University of Waterloo has launched the first ever HeForShe scholarship program, spearheaded in September 2015. It is now decided to award 24 outstanding female students in the STEM subjects, which include mathematics, physics, engineering, astronomy, and computer science. And the University of Oxford has introduced the historic initiative to end gender-based violence on campus. The new harassment policy and procedure will be introduced across the university's 38 college entities and will force the leaders of the different colleges to implement effectively. So this body of activist university, including what you are doing there, is giving us a critical mass of universities that are fighting for change, not just talking about it, but doing something about it. We then have companies that are part of the HeForShe movement. They already have published their own first book in which they take on the issue of parity within their companies, because we emphasize in the HeForShe the importance of addressing the issues in your own space, your own institution, your own company, but also to be a shining light for the world and to put pressure on your peers. So the companies that are 10 HeForShe champions are Vodacom, PwC, Tupperware, Twitter, McKinsey, Unilever, Schneider, Accord Hotels, Koç, which is a Turkish company, and Barclays. Together, and the book will be coming later so that I can show before we end, they've published a book after having looked at the representation of women at board level, at senior leadership level, the pipeline for new recruits, and the overall composition of their labor force. And they've committed themselves to address the gaps that they discovered as they were putting together that data by 2020. They made this announcement in Davos amongst their partners, and the idea is that every year they will publish an update, and in 2020, hopefully, they are committed to have achieved gender parity in these companies. Now, this will be interested, for instance, for a tech company like Twitter, because we know we've got lots of challenges in that space when it comes into gender parity. But also in the finance industries, which the PwC is in, it would also be interesting to see how they will be able to pull their peers. And we have Ernst & Young, which already has written about this, who can then be encouraged to actually do something about the research that they've done. So Georgetown joins really a wonderful team of countries, of companies, of universities, and 10 countries that have also come forward to say they're putting their neck on the block to lead. These countries include Malawi, Iceland, Finland, Sweden, Indonesia, Georgia, and their commitments range from ending child marriage within a specific time, addressing equal pay within their own countries, increasing the representation of women in the private sector and creating legislation that would enable paternity leave not to be a nice to do, but a must do, so that we could create better parenting opportunities for men in those countries. And of course, in all of these countries, violence against women is a main issue. And lastly, the 10 universities that are participating in He4She are also providing data, also which is analyzing the student enrollment, disaggregated male and female, looking at faculty, both tenured and non-tenured faculty members, looking at senior leadership, and look at the way the students choose their subject, and what are the reasons why so many women will go to social sciences and humanities, and men will go to STEM, and try to orchestrate and across the board more men on where they are not highly represented, and vice versa, so that we can demonstrate that the world can actually have all of our people in all of the areas that are critical. So He4She hopefully is an initiative that will make Georgetown shine, not just in Georgetown, but beyond Georgetown. And we look forward to be part of this journey with you. Thank you.
Many thanks, Dr. Lambo Nguka, for those wonderful words of inspiration and challenge. We certainly accept that. It would be remiss of me not to recognize the men at Georgetown who exemplify He4She. And so, not to embarrass anyone, I'm going to name them if you don't mind. Beginning with, I can't really see, Judd Nicholson, who is the Vice President of University Information Systems. Todd Olson, our Vice President of Student Affairs. Is that Charles DeSantis, our Vice President of Benefits? Robin Morey, our Vice President of Facilities. Of course, you heard from our President, John DeGioia, earlier this morning. And I thought I saw Lee Reed, our Director of Athletics. Eric Smolson, our Vice President of Public Affairs and Strategic Development. And Dr. Tom Banchoff, our Vice President of Global Affairs, and the Director of our Berkeley Center. And Ed Quinn, our University Secretary. I see Chris Murphy. I see Chris Murphy, our Associate Vice President of Community Engagement. And I see Kevin Connery, our Vice President of Advancement from our Law Center. Oh, I see Randy Bass, our Vice Provost for Candles. I think I've covered everyone. I certainly want to applaud your efforts for supporting the university's work with the United Nations as we promote He4She to ensure that women across our campus are given very good opportunities for promotion, equal pay for equal work, promotion within our academic ranks, and all of the benefits that the university confers on its members of the community, as well as our students. I'm going to ask Dr. Lambo Nguka to join me on the stage. And I'm going to ask our students to come forward, beginning with Joe Luther, who is our president of student government, to say a few words about his leadership in addressing these issues. Joe?
Thank you. As Rosemary said, my name is Joe Luther. I'm the president of the Georgetown University Student Association here. What you may or may not know, though, is that I was actually elected on a satire ticket. And now last year, when we ran the satire ticket, we really wanted to use this opportunity to make points about what we thought were the shortcomings of the university and the student association. So each part of our platform that we put out, which was fairly extensive, we wanted to use, again, to make points. So, for instance, for our notoriously opaque student association, we declared that we were going to paint the walls of the office clear. We said that in order to de-stress students, we were going to get rid of that really spooky graveyard and things like that. But when it came to the topic of things like sexual assault, we really had a hard time figuring out how we should approach the issue. Because for us, there was no joke that could make a point, but also grapple with the seriousness of the fact that with issues on this campus, there is real harm that's being done. So we thought the most poignant thing that we could do as a satire ticket would be to put together a real platform on this issue. So we did our homework and released a platform that we thought covered where the shortcomings were on this issue. And I think that was something that really resonated with people here. Because Georgetown is, no different than any other university, and that is a problem here. And I will say that I'm most proud, I think, of the work that we've done in this area during the time that I've been in office this year. And a lot of that has to do with the memorandum of understanding that we signed in August with the university. And a lot of that boils down to, we have things like bystander education programs that we're working on. As we've said here a lot about the campus climate survey that just came out, we had a 51% participation rate, which I think is fantastic when you consider the fact that 19% is the average. But what I think the biggest issue going forward here is that this is largely a cultural issue, is that this is not going to be fixed by the end of my term or the person after me or the person after them. This is something that's going to have to be worked on for years and years to come. But I will say that even in the year that I've been working in student government, I think we have seen some tangible change. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds here.
We'll now hear from Haley Manis. She's the co-chair of the Sexual Assault Working Group that Dr. Jajoya referenced in his remarks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. As noted, I am the student co-chair of the Sexual Assault Working Group on Georgetown University. I first came to Georgetown in 2011 as a freshman in the wake of the earthquake and Hurricane Irene. So I was a little worried about whether or not Georgetown would be entirely tumultuous my entire time here. And I noticed that the harder I worked at Georgetown, the smoother things became. And I noticed how much change has happened during my tenure at Georgetown. I first started my work in the sexual assault movement as president of Take Back the Night in my junior year, and I have served as the co-chair of SOG for the past 2 years as the student representative. SOG is made out of student athletics, GUSA, student representatives, faculty representatives, GUPD, student affairs, student conduct, university council. So it's a lot of really important members of the university who all are committed to coming together once a month and discussing the policies that are happening on Georgetown's campus. And what's really meaningful about that is you get an interplay of all these different stakeholders on campus. And everyone is allowed to bring their concerns to the table, and we discuss them, and we can see what can be done. And it's incredible the work that has happened. As noted a few times before, we've done the campus climate survey, where we had students have input on the creation of the survey, on the marketing of the survey. Hopefully we'll have students talking about the distribution of the results later on once the results have been analyzed. And so Georgetown is incredibly committed to having different members of the university work together on this issue of sexual assault and sexual violence. And we are a leader in the nation about what we can do to really change things on our campus climate. And so I'm really thankful for the opportunities that I've been given to work with the university, and I really hope that things can continue to progress in a positive manner.
Thank you, Haley. Now we will hear from Jonathan Drambul, who is the UN chapter president on our campus. Jonathan?
Thank you. Dear Executive Director Pomzeli, ambassadors, President DeJoya, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have been able to put a man on the moon and eradicate diseases, yet we can't grant women the same right as men. Why is it that the global community continues to systematically ignore the humanity of women in a time when gender equality is vital to our global economic and security? I'm proud to attend an institution that understands the important role that women play on the international stage, but more importantly, in our own community here on the Hilltop. My name is Jonathan Drongwell. I'm a senior in the School of Foreign Service, and I am proud to say that I'm he for she. Coming from a country where machismo is the special of the day, I have grown up watching women play a secondary role on both televised media and my extended family. Too often, Women in Mexican society are afraid to speak up and assert their independence due to worries over economic and physical harm. The joke that a women's place is in the kitchen or with the kids is unfortunately seen as a reality throughout Mexico. Women are not meant to engage in aspects of society that transcend into the fields outside of the child or home care. It's not that women don't want to be a part of the economy, it is that few outlets are available in my home country for the legitimate active engagement, limiting them to operate within the informal economy. My parents had the incredible blessing, and at times curse, to have had me at an extremely young age. However, from day one, they have beat the odds and stereotypes placed on them. It wasn't a conversation with my parents, it was just simply assumed that my mother would not simply stay at home, that my mother would play an active role in the family and in the economy. From day one, I was raised with that notion, and my sister has been raised with that notion that no matter what, we are equal. As an advocate for human rights, and I dare say a feminist, Georgetown's commitment to gender equality and the He for She campaign illustrates the university's understanding of the importance of not just being men and women for others, but humans for others. As one of the 10 impact universities in the He for She campaign, Georgetown University is unique in the sense that it is truly a community initiative. Young people through the United Nations Association of Georgetown have pushed for an active dialogue with the administration and various partner organizations. Having a strong youth presence does not only provide a fresh perspective to the prestigious institution, but adds a sense of accountability to the commitments that Georgetown has made. For all the studies done about millennials, one thing is certain. We are a driven generation that likes to hold our leaders accountable. The United Nations Association of Georgetown, a student-founded and run organization, is dedicated to educating, communicating, and advocating on behalf of the United Nations to increase a US-UN relationship, but also a youth-UN relationship, and has been at the forefront of the He for She movement since day one. We understand the important role that all women play in every facet of society, and we hope that we will take, and we hope that you will take the pledge to not only raise awareness on the issue, but take action in whatever aspect you can. Under your seats, or next to you at this point, depending on where you put it, there are white cards that we encourage you to fill out to take the pledge and commit to being part of He for She. We hope to continuously engage Georgetown University and the community to ensure that we no longer have to fight for women's rights, not because they are not important, but because they become the status quo in every aspect of society. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan and Haley and Joe. You truly exemplify Georgetown's values of cura personalis, men and women for others, and community in diversity and social justice. At this point, I'd like to turn it over and have some questions from the audience. But before asking you, I will take a point of personal privilege and ask you the first question, if you don't mind. What inspired you to get involved in this movement for global justice for women?
Well, born in South Africa, at the time I was born and grew up, you had to be really dumb not to see that there was something wrong in my country. So I think the circumstances propelled one to become involved. But also family, which I think is weird because we all come from a family. The fact that these issues were discussed and debated hotly in my family provided me with an orientation. And I think that the lesson for all of us to take from there is that it is actually important to have these discussions with our family, with our children, because I would never have wanted to be a politician, frankly. I always wanted to be a lawyer or a teacher. The fact that I found myself being a deputy president of a country, I would ask myself, how did I get here? But, circumstances conspired to put me in that position. And I would say that really family plays a very important role in channeling one's value system and choices.
Well, we certainly appreciate your leadership in this very important work. I will now ask members of the audience to please begin by asking any questions that you might have. I believe there's a microphone that's going to be circulated to those of you who may have a question. Haley? Right here.
Hi, I wanted to thank you so much for being here. I had a question really about the way he for she works in the global community, considering that the issue of gender equity or gender equality can mean so many different things, A, to so many different cultures, and B, to all the different countries depending on where women currently are seen in society. And so I wanted to ask how you really can affect this in a global manner, considering each different country has valued women in different ways, and it's a different climate in each different country.
Well, I think the good thing about being part of the United Nations is that we have tried to aggregate a value system that we say is good for everybody. And because member states raise their hand and vote and commit to certain specific, what is a child right, what is a woman right, etc., you find a way of making sure that they live up to these commitments that they make. For instance, people will argue that you cannot fight against child marriages because it's part of a culture. In the same breath, we talk about children's rights that all countries sign up to. So you have to say to the countries, this works against this other right that you have already agreed is important for the children of your country. And through that, and the presence of very active civil society in most countries, the change in the value system and the fact that culture is dynamic, I think sometimes we give too much credit for the static nature of culture. Culture is dynamic, and in this area of rights, I think there's more people who actually want to see change than there's people who resist change. Those who resist can really dig in, but there's always pressure that can help you to move in the right direction. So we take advantage of all these circumstances. The countries acceding of certain international laws and agreements, their own constitutions. There's no country which has a constitution that says we will discriminate against women. Most countries express the positive. You look for the right sentence and the word, and member states are very tricky about words. You can always find the right word. You hold on to the movements of those countries that espouse the rights-based culture. We work a lot with young people in most countries who are always an important constituency to work with. So there's enough to work with for us to actually generate a universal value system in the 21st century. It definitely is possible. And one always, I think, has to take a view that what is good for a child in New York is good for a child in Qwaqwa. And whether that child is in school or out of school, wherever in the world, it is a problem if they are not at school. And us as the global community, we have to find a way of making it work for that child who's going to be left behind.
Very good. Thank you. As you travel across the globe and visit universities in particular, what are some of the common threads that you see that binds us together in promoting this work?
You love data?
Sure, why not?
Which is very important. Now in the UN, we appreciate the importance of evidence-based decision-making like we've never done before. One of the things that we learned out of the implementing the Millennium Development Goals was the fact that there were countries which has no capacity for collecting data and have no statistical institution meant that there were countries where you did not have proper baseline data, for instance, to determine what and where you were starting from as far as infant mortality is concerned, for instance, access to health facilities and so on. So in every country where universities take an interest in solving the problems of their countries, one thing that they bring to the table, which is so important, is actually capacity to research, to generate data, and to help governments and civil society to make decisions that are based on good evidence. But also, I think that the importance of academic freedom, that all universities that I visit cherish and protect so much is one of the most important contributions that universities bring in lives of nations and to the global community. And the fact that the discussion that we are having about gender equality are just sometimes as intense in a university as they would be outside in a society gives you both the possibility to address the issues as they happen in your own countries, but also to analyze the issues as they happen elsewhere, and you are able to provide us with some analysis. And I do have an ask to the university. You know, in the UN Women, in the UN we're always asking. You know, women who live in conflict areas don't get to write their own stories. In this subject of women, peace, and security, most of the published authors are people who live in the West. Mm-hmm. And women have so much to tell, and even as a healing process, but also to give us a perspective of the people who have lived in conflict. One of the things that I'm lobbying you to do is to provide scholarships for those women to actually come and write their stories elsewhere and to publish, and obviously also to learn and to graduate with qualifications, because again, this is also something that only universities can do to help us to order our thoughts and our experiences so that we can put together something that will help the next generation and more people as they read about our experiences. Did I lobby well, Melanie?
That is certainly something that we will consider at Georgetown. After all, our values are meant for women, for men and women for others. And so we will try our best to exemplify those principles, and we will continue to do so. Are there any other questions from the audience? You take the mic over there. Sure.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. Thank you so much for speaking here at Georgetown today. So I think as students and girls here on Georgetown's campus and girls all over the world in my generation, I think we look up to women like you, like other women on the He for She campaign as role models. And so my question for you is how would you suggest girls my age, girls all over the world to be role models in our own society?
Okay. Firstly, vote for other women. Very important. Because of us to have a critical mass and to demonstrate the significant role that women can play, it is to put women there in front to do the job the way we know women can do. Then we increase a pool of women who provide that mentorship and as role models. I also think that for all of us who have achieved anything, no matter how modest it can be, as women and men, it's important to lift as we climb, to always be there for other younger people so that they can know that I've got you. Climb the ladder. It can be slippery, but I am here to make sure that you get one step at a time. So, and of course, it's not just what you can learn from other women who are more experienced, it's also what you can learn from your peers, because there's something really to be gained from a constructive relationship of sisterhood. I don't know, I find that from how other people feel, I find that some of the quality time that I spend with other women who are doing different, exciting things gives me an insight into the number of issues that I'm also struggling and dealing with. Give you an example. When I was deputy president in South Africa, you know, when you are a deputy in government, you are not the boss. And the ministers know that you're not the boss, so you cannot hire and fire them. But you can tell the boss what to do. So sort of they take you serious and respect you, but they just know that they can also go to the boss and tell the boss something. So, and I was having a problem to get certain clusters of ministers to deliver on critical areas that were key for the country. And it was getting quite intense. So I called the Prime Minister of Mozambique. In Mozambique, they have a presidential system, but they also have a Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister becomes a de facto deputy president. So I called her. I said, hey, how do you deal with this? She says, firstly, make sure that your president does not have a cell phone, a mobile phone, so that the ministers do not go and have long conversation on work areas that you have not cleared, in those areas that you are responsible for. My president at that time was President Mbeki, and fortunately was that generation of leaders who got into office before they had mobile phones. So he didn't know how the thing worked and was not interested in it. So I said, okay, tick, I think I'm safe as far as that is concerned. And then she said, also, always remind the president that when a minister comes to make an argument or a request about something that is a court decision, he must just make a vague response and send it back to a committee or to you so that you can interrogate the detail. I said, tick. My president will actually make the minister stay and say, let me call the deputy president and find out what she thinks. But she said, however, having said that, pick up your fights. Know when you need to, and I think that is a lesson, I suppose, in leadership everywhere. Know when you just need to be a cheerleader, because every minister is a leader in their own right. And therefore, coordinating leaders is a challenge. Know when you have to cheer them, and know when you have to be stern, and make sure that you keep your credits, so that when you really need to take them to task, they actually know that when they are doing something good, you are supporting them. It's a generic experience, but she gave me case studies in her own cabinet when that worked and when it hasn't. And so this was, for me, a real masterclass between a colleague who lives in the same world as I live. So working together and being in touch with other young or older women who are trying to achieve the same things, and men, is actually important to enhance your growth.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
And can I ask for the book?
Is that the book you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
That the corporations put together as part of the
yes,
okay.
So I'd like to leave you.
That would be great. You want a short?
Well, I would like to actually leave this library with a copy, but there'll be more. So it's something that I'd like to share with you. And to say we are hoping to do a similar book for the countries and for the universities, and to find a wonderful occasion either at UNESCO or at the General Assembly, where the 10 universities will be there, and we will be able to showcase your work. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Before we close, I just have one announcement I'd like to make, and that is to remind all of you that tomorrow evening we will be welcoming a delegation of 12 graduate students, faculty, and staff from Nagoya University in Japan. As President Joya mentioned, and as Mzile mentioned, Nagoya University is one of the 10 Impact Champion universities that are participating in the He for She Impact. We have a wonderful group of faculty and staff, including, I see Lisa Krim, who is here, who is going to be on that panel discussion tomorrow night. And it starts at 4 o'clock in Coffee Lounge, and then it will be followed by refreshments. So I hope you can all join us. Again, let me thank you for your wonderful remarks. We really appreciate that, and the time you spent with us today. And we certainly accept the challenge to exemplify He for She. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.